At her best friend's wedding, Chloe set her sights on the youngest uncle of her friend's husband. She tried all sorts of ways to act cute and cling to him, using every pickup line in the book, but he always kept his distance. For a while she even thought he was the type who only pursued pure romance and had no interest in physical intimacy. That was until she accidentally saw a text message on his phone. It read, "Don't you find it annoying being clung to like that all the time? She comes to the office looking for you every day, dressing so flashily too." His reply was, "It is a bit annoying actually." Chloe's heart ached with a bitter sting. She put his phone back where she had found it, pretending nothing had happened. Welcome back to Tiny Diary It. Have you ever almost ruined a relationship just by overthinking a single text message? Today, let's follow Chloe as she boldly chases after a cold, aloof man, and see how jumping to conclusions can push a romance right to the edge. Let's dive in. When Ethan returned from his meeting, she immediately said her goodbyes. "I'm going to head home now," she said. He suddenly grabbed her wrist, frowning slightly. "Weren't you having stomach cramps? Do you want me to rub it for you?" After a moment of silence, she pulled her hand away. "I'm feeling much better. It was probably just a stomachache from eating junk food." Ethan's gaze dropped to his empty hand before shifting back up to her face, as if he were doubting the truth of her words. Chloe raised a hand to rub her neck, feigning exhaustion. "You know how my stomach is. I went out for barbecue yesterday with Liam and the rest of them, so..." Liam was Ethan's nephew and also the husband of her best friend, Sarah. Ethan looked half convinced. He paused for a moment before saying coldly, "Are you sure it doesn't hurt anymore? Don't force yourself to bear it." Chloe shook her head. "It really doesn't hurt anymore, Uncle Ethan." Ethan's breath hitched. His eyes darkened unpredictably and his brow furrowed deeper. "What did you just call me?" Ever since she had set her sights on Ethan, she had called him practically everything: honey, baby, hubby, babe. At the very least, she would call him by his full first and last name. Hearing the title uncle come out of her mouth was definitely a stark novelty to him. Chloe curved her eyes into a smile and said, "You're Liam's uncle and he's my best friend's husband. It's only right for me to call you that. I can't keep being impolite forever." Even though she had already been impolite for a very long time. Ethan's gaze wavered slightly. He sat down in the chair behind his desk, his tone unreadable. "Fine, it's up to you." Chloe hurriedly found a random excuse and left. Ethan sat in his chair, his heavy gaze falling on the lipstick left on the desk. His thin lips pressed into a tight line. He was just reaching out to grab it when the door suddenly opened again. Chloe ran in and snatched up the lipstick. "I forgot to grab this by Uncle Ethan." Ethan watched her retreating back as she fled in a panic. On his normally cold face, a fleeting, barely discernible trace of emotion appeared. Stepping out of the company building, Chloe placed a hand over her chest. Her heart tightened in agonizing waves. "It is a bit annoying, actually." Those words felt like a red-hot brand that refused to fade. A man who could politely say it's fine, even after someone spilled red wine all over him, had actually said, "It is a bit annoying, actually." She had really outdone herself this time. Chloe looked up at the sky, which was gradually turning grey. Had Ethan found her annoying for a long time now? Chloe had first met Ethan at her best friend Sarah's wedding. Initially, Sarah hadn't wanted to throw a lavish wedding, but she couldn't withstand Liam's relentless pleading and pestering. During the wedding, Sarah was worried that Chloe would get too tired, so she didn't let her be a bridesmaid and instead arranged for her to sit at the head table. Right after sitting down, Chloe saw a man walking toward her from the opposite direction. His simple, casual outfit couldn't hide his perfect proportions, a trim waist and just the right amount of lean muscle. Looking up, she saw a face so handsome it looked meticulously sculpted. He had sharp, cold eyes and brows, a high nose bridge, a teardrop mole by the corner of his eye, and thin, pale pink lips that made her want to kiss them just by looking at them. At first glance, she just knew this was her future boyfriend. And as luck would have it, he took the seat right next to her. Chloe immediately flashed a bright smile, sidling up to him to ask his name, his age, and if he was single. A hint of confusion appeared on his face, but he still answered every single one of her questions. "Ethan, 27, single." After confirming that he was single in every possible aspect, she immediately whipped out her phone. "What a coincidence, I'm single too. Let's exchange numbers, handsome." Ethan looked like he wanted to say something but stopped, ultimately giving in and adding her anyway. When Sarah and Liam returned from their toast rounds, Chloe finally learned his identity through the way Liam addressed him, Uncle. Deep in thought, Chloe turned her head and whispered to Sarah, niece-in-law. Sarah looked at Ethan, then back at Chloe. As Chloe's best friend of many years with their deep mutual understanding, Sarah instantly caught on. Only this time, Sarah didn't act as her love guru like usual. Instead, she warned her seriously, I heard Liam say that his uncle is very cold and aloof. Plus, it seems like he has zero interest in that sort of thing. He's been single for 27 years and is still a virgin. Are you sure about this? Pure platonic love. Doesn't that just make it even more interesting? Chloe replied. After that, throughout the rest of the wedding reception, Chloe didn't stop talking to Ethan. She even casually brushed against the back of his hand, his palm, and his arm every now and then. Even after the party ended, she acted cute and coaxed him into driving her home. Once she got home, she relentlessly bombarded him with text messages. Ethan, my head is spinning a little. Could you stop running around in my mind? He replied with a screenshot showing he had ordered hangover tea for her. Ethan, I feel so hot. Are you cold? Can I hug you? You might have a fever. Take some medicine, he replied. Baby, I feel like my ears aren't working anymore. Can you call me? He sent a voice message, but it consisted of only a brief, definitive no. His cold, deep voice made it impossible for Chloe to stop her wild imagination. Listening and fantasizing, the corners of her lips curled up into a smile that refused to come down. Even though Ethan was sometimes very busy with work and replied to her texts very slowly, Chloe hadn't minded. As long as she was having fun, that was all that mattered. But thinking back on it now, it was probably because he found her annoying that he took so long to reply. After she caught a cab home, Sarah called her. I want a divorce. Chloe rested her forehead in her hand, exasperated. Why this time? He doesn't love me anymore. This was already the third time Sarah had declared she wanted a divorce since marrying Liam. And every time, her reasons sounded suspiciously like bragging about their relationship. He sticks to you like glue every single day. He kisses you, hugs you, and drops cheesy pickup lines at the drop of a hat. How does he not love you anymore? Chloe asked. Sarah refused to listen. I don't care. You either come to my place or I'll go to yours. Actually, forget it. Let's just go out to a bar for some drinks. If you just wanted to drink, you should have just said so, Chloe thought. When she arrived at the bar, Chloe realized that Sarah wasn't alone. Their college friends, upperclassmen and underclassmen, guys and girls alike, were all there. Even Liam, the guy who was supposedly about to get divorced, was present. It seemed she had been tricked. Chloe didn't really like the atmosphere of bars, but Sarah loved it, and she loved dragging Chloe along with her. It must have been hard on her to come up with such an elaborate excuse, just to trick Chloe into coming out. After arriving, Chloe stayed tucked in a corner, watching the chaotic, dancing crowd in front of her. Speaking of which, the last time she was at a bar, Ethan had been there too. Originally, she hadn't planned on going, but Sarah had told her that if she came, she would make Liam invite his uncle. Chloe had agreed immediately. She had even carefully picked out a spaghetti strap dress, determined to make him do a double take, and then a triple take. The moment she spotted Ethan, it was like she had an automatic tracking device. She stuck to him right away. Ethan, wow, what a coincidence. Ethan just shot her a glance. He took a sip of his drink and replied lightly, yeah. Chloe smiled brightly, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, hugged his arm and looked up at him. Why so cold? Do you have another girl in your heart? No, Ethan replied. Ethan, I went to see a doctor yesterday. Ethan rarely looked her up and down, but he did now, frowning slightly. Are you sick? Chloe nodded vigorously. Yeah, I haven't been sleeping well lately. The doctor recommended that I sleep in your arms. Can I? Ethan raised a finger, pressed it against her forehead and pushed her away. Sleeping in my arms isn't comfortable. I recommend you sleep in a bed. No matter how much she flirted, he remained an unwavering block of ice. But at the time, she was only focused on achieving her goal, completely ignoring her target's feelings and his deliberate distancing. She had thought that surely someone pursuing platonic love wasn't incurable. Her heart felt heavy. She picked up the glass of wine in front of her and took a sip. Perhaps he had started to dislike her back then, seeing her as an annoyance. The crowd's enthusiasm didn't wane but only grew, and her head was spinning slightly. The phone in her pocket buzzed a few times. She took it out. It was a WeChat message. The contact name was saved as Ethan Uncle Edition. She had just temporarily changed it to remind herself that this man should only be admired from afar, and she couldn't throw herself at him anymore. "Are you home?" Chloe rubbed her temples and texted back, "I'm home, why?" The typing indicator on the chat interface lasted for a whole minute. "Aren't you afraid of the dark?" Last month when her power went out, she had pretended to be afraid of the dark. She called and texted him, acting cute and begging relentlessly, insisting on getting Ethan to come over and spend the night with her. But this man completely ignored her advances. Expressionless and emotionally undisturbed, he tucked her under the covers and read her bedtime stories for 2 whole hours. "Yes, that's why the little nightlight you gave me is still on," she replied. The typing indicator stretched on for another 2 minutes. "Then why is your room dark?" Chloe hurriedly grabbed her phone and ran out of the private room, heading to the relatively quiet second-floor balcony facing the main road, and called him. The call connected very quickly. "Why are you at my house?" The other end of the line fell strangely silent for a few seconds. "Just passing by." Did he drive a whole lap around the city and just coincidentally pass by my house? She thought. Perhaps Ethan himself felt this excuse was too absurd, so he continued, "Your stomach was bothering you, so I bought some things. Where are you?" Oh my God, she panicked. If Ethan found out she was at a bar, he would definitely guess that her stomachache had been fake. Then wouldn't he think she was deliberately bothering him even more? She couldn't admit it. "I'm feeling much better. I'm out walking around with some friends," she lied. "It's so loud on your end," he noted. Chloe forced a laugh. Right, so don't worry, Uncle Ethan, I'm really fine." Ethan didn't say anything for a long time. Just when she thought he was going to hang up, he asked, "Are you mad?" "Huh. My meeting today ran a bit long. You were in pain and had to wait for me, so you got mad and said it didn't hurt anymore, right?" Huh. Although in the past, whenever his meetings ran late, she would continuously send him whiny texts to rush him, this time his meeting had only lasted 10 minutes. "I'm not mad, your work is definitely more important than I am, I understand that much." She couldn't be like before, saying, "That's right, I'm mad, so you need to give me a kiss," only to be coldly rejected by him again. Before he found her completely annoying, she had to maintain a well-behaved image. "Uncle Ethan, it's getting late, you should get some rest. I still have to go eat with my friends, that's all, bye-bye." "Let me come with you." Chloe froze. "What?" Ethan's voice was perfectly calm. "I'm going to eat too, I'll come along." Chloe hurriedly laughed it off. "Uncle Ethan, you're downstairs at my house right now, how can you come with us?" "Who told you I was still downstairs at your house?" Chloe froze completely. Over the phone came that familiar cold voice. "Look down." She instinctively looked down. Under a street lamp across the road parked a black car. Ethan stood leaning against it all alone, his phone to his ear. He looked up, his deep dark eyes staring right at her on the second floor, carrying an intense, overbearing sense of pressure. "Are you coming down or should I come up?" Chloe was so scared she almost threw her phone off the balcony. Let Ethan come up. That would be no different from having a strict elder come to inspect a den of vice. Plus, his very own nephew was inside making a huge fuss about getting a divorce. "I'll come down," she said. She decisively hung up, turned around and dashed downstairs. Running to the bar's entrance, a gust of cold wind hit her, making her shiver. Ethan was still standing by his car, holding a white thermal bag in his hand. He didn't even look at her, his gaze fixed straight ahead. Chloe mustered her courage and walked over, stopping a meter away from him and giving a dry laugh. "Uncle Ethan, how did you find me here?" Ethan turned his head. His eyes swept over her exposed shoulders in the spaghetti-strap dress before finally resting on her face. "Weren't you out for a walk?" His voice was very soft but carried a chilling edge. "Walked right into a bar, did you?" My friends just suddenly felt like it, Chloe said, feeling guilty as she tugged at the hem of her dress to try and block out the wind. He didn't say anything, just handed her the thermal bag. She took it and looked down. Inside was a box of stomach medicine and a container of seafood porridge. The bag was still warm. Chloe's heart instantly felt like it had been pierced by something, aching with a bitter sting. If this were in the past, she would have definitely taken the opportunity to throw herself at him, hugging his arm and whining, "Ethan, you're the best, feed it to me." But now that sentence, "It is a bit annoying," actually felt like a mountain pressing down on her chest. She didn't reach out to take the bag. Instead, she took a half step back, forcing a polite and distant smile. "Thank you, Uncle Ethan, but I'm really feeling better. I had a hot drink inside earlier and my stomach doesn't hurt anymore." Ethan's hand, still offering the bag, froze in midair. He looked at her, his dark eyes unreadable, but the air pressure around them had visibly dropped a few degrees. "What hot drink?" he asked. "Just a hot drink," she replied. Ethan suddenly took a step forward. He was very tall and his shadow instantly enveloped her. Chloe instinctively tried to step back but was caught by the wrist. His fingers were freezing and his grip was strong, pulling her slightly forward. A faint scent of alcohol wafted off her. Ethan's gaze turned completely icy. "A hot drink," he scoffed coldly. "Chloe, do you think I'm an idiot?" Chloe struggled with all her might but couldn't break free. "Uncle Ethan, let go of me first." She was getting a bit frantic. If they kept wrestling like this on the main street and Sarah and the others came out and saw them, who knew what rumors they would make up? Instead of letting go, Ethan gripped her even tighter. "Why aren't you calling me Ethan anymore?" He leaned down slightly, his eyes locked onto hers. She turned her face away, deliberately putting on a very relaxed tone. "I was just being immature before. I called you whatever I wanted because I thought it was fun, but thinking about it now, you're Liam's uncle after all. It really isn't appropriate for me to address you so casually. Don't you agree, Uncle Ethan?" Ethan said nothing, but his grip on her wrist grew even heavier. Right at that moment, a commotion erupted from the entrance of the bar. "Chloe, where did you run off to?" Sarah called out, her words slurring slightly. Immediately after, she and Liam stumbled out, one after the other. Walking out the main doors and seeing Chloe and Ethan standing by the car, the two of them stopped in their tracks. Liam was the first to react. Sobering up by half, he stammered, "You Uncle Ethan, why are you here?" Sarah's eyes widened even further. She looked at Ethan's hand holding Chloe's, then looked at Chloe with an expression like she had just stumbled upon some juicy gossip. "Not bad, Chloe, you snagged him behind my back." Chloe's heart thumped loudly. She forcefully shook off Ethan's hand, walked straight over to Sarah and linked arms with her. "Don't talk nonsense," she said with a straight face, deliberately raising her voice a little to ensure Ethan could hear. "He's an elder, you and Liam argue every day, so Uncle Ethan came looking for Liam to have a talk. He just happened to run into me at the door." Sarah was stunned. "Huh." Liam was equally bewildered. He looked cautiously toward Ethan and said, "Uncle Ethan, I didn't cause any trouble." Ethan's gaze bypassed them and landed coldly on Chloe. It was a look akin to watching a stranger making a scene over nothing. A moment later, he withdrew his gaze and casually tossed the thermal bag into a nearby trash can. The soft thud echoed like a strike against her heart. Without saying another unnecessary word to Liam, he turned, opened the car door and got in. The engine started and the black car quickly disappeared into the night. Chloe stared at the disappearing taillights, her heart feeling hollow. It's for the best, she thought. Better a quick pain than a prolonged one. He found her annoying, so she would take the initiative to disappear. That way everyone could save face. From that day on, Chloe unilaterally cut off all contact with Ethan. Previously, she would send him at least 10 WeChat messages a day. Good morning and good night, she never missed a single one, and occasionally she would even send a few beautifully edited selfies. Now their chat log was as silent as a dead group chat. She stopped staking out the lobby of his company, and even visited Sarah's house less frequently, afraid she might accidentally run into him. For half a month they had absolutely nothing to do with each other. This weekend, however, Sarah insisted on dragging her to a hot spring resort in the suburbs. "This time that annoying Liam definitely won't be there," It'll just be us girls purely relaxing, she promised firmly over the phone. Chloe repeatedly confirmed that Liam wasn't going, and more importantly, that Liam's uncle wasn't going either, before finally agreeing. Upon arriving at the hot spring resort, Chloe realized that Sarah had half lied to her. It was true that Liam wasn't there, but some of their college upperclassmen and underclassmen were. Sarah euphemistically called it sharing resources and expanding networks. Among them was an upperclassman named Lucas, who used to pursue her back in college. Afterward, he had gone abroad for his master's degree. Having just returned to the country and hearing from Sarah that Chloe was single, he immediately rushed over. During dinner, Lucas deliberately sat next to her, attentively serving her food and pouring her drinks. "Chloe, it's been a few years and you've only gotten prettier," he said with a bright smile, his eyes gleaming. Chloe thanked him politely, but in reality she felt completely uninterested. Having experienced someone as top-tier as Ethan, looking at anyone else always made her feel like something was missing. Just as she was about to find an excuse to head back to her room to rest, the door to their private dining room was suddenly pushed open. A waiter stood respectfully by the door, clearing a path. A man in a black trench coat walked in, and the entire room instantly fell silent. Chloe almost spat out the sip of juice in her mouth. Why was Ethan here? Tall and with an icy expression, his gaze swept across the table before finally landing precisely on her, or rather, on Lucas, who was sitting right next to her. Sarah gasped, hurriedly standing up to smooth things over. "Uncle." "Uncle Ethan, why are you here?" Sarah asked. Ethan didn't even look at her. He walked straight to the table, pulled out the empty chair opposite Chloe and sat down. As he passed by, his voice was calm. "Just passing by." Passing by again, Chloe thought. A hot spring resort out in the suburbs, and he just happened to pass by and drop in for a meal. She unnaturally averted her gaze, lowering her head to pretend to play on her phone. Lucas, who didn't know Ethan, sensed the awkward atmosphere and took the initiative to ask, "Chloe, who is this?" He said her name with such casual intimacy. Before Chloe could even open her mouth, Ethan spoke up first. "I'm her uncle." He looked at Lucas, the corners of his mouth twitching into a faint, barely there sneer. "A relative." The meal left Chloe sitting on pins and needles. Although Ethan didn't say anything else, his commanding presence was simply too overwhelming. Every time Lucas placed food on her plate, she could feel an icy stare from across the table piercing her hand. Gritting her teeth, she ate the food just to prove she had moved on from Ethan. She even deliberately turned her head to smile at Lucas. "Thanks, Lucas, this dish is really good." Flattered and pleasantly surprised, Lucas immediately picked up the serving chopsticks. "Then eat some more, these shrimp are good too, let me peel them for you." "That's okay, I can do it myself," Chloe said. "Let me, your hand is hurt." Lucas had noticed the tiny scratch on the web of her hand, accidentally nicked the day before. Chloe froze. Just as she was about to refuse, the chair opposite her suddenly let out an ear-piercing screech against the floor. Ethan stood up. Holding his phone in his hand, his expression was so dark it looked like a storm was about to break. "I'm going out for a smoke." After dropping those words, he pulled the door open and walked out. The moment the door clicked shut, Chloe breathed an inexplicable sigh of relief. After dinner, everyone suggested playing board games. Chloe used their excuse of being a little tired and wanting to head back to her room early. Ever considerate, Lucas stood up. "I'll walk you back then." The street lights in the resort were a bit dim, so she didn't refuse. Stepping out of the main building, a gust of cold wind blew past. Lucas walked beside her, casually chatting on and off about their old college days. They reached a corner where the streetlight ahead was broken, leaving the area bathed in dim shadows. "Chloe, actually, the main reason I came back to the country this time was to see you." Lucas suddenly stopped walking, his tone turning serious. Chloe's heart skipped a beat. She knew exactly what he was about to say. Just as she was about to open her mouth to interrupt him, an ice-cold voice suddenly drifted over from nearby. "The streetlights are this dim, yet you two are still standing here talking." Startled, Chloe turned her head. Ethan was leaning against the wall in the shadowy corner, the cherry of the cigarette between his fingers glowing faintly in the dark. He put out the cigarette, stepped out of the shadows and walked straight up to her. Uncle Ethan, what are you doing here? Chloe asked, trying her best to appear calm. Ethan ignored her, turning his gaze to Lucas. She has arrived, you can go back now. His tone was an absolute command. Lucas frowned, clearly annoyed. Sir, even though you're Chloe's elder, it isn't very appropriate for you to interfere in her social life like this. Ethan's lips curled upwards. Elder. He took a step forward, reached out and grabbed Chloe's wrist, pulling her roughly toward him. Chloe, why don't you tell him exactly what kind of elder I am to you? Chloe stumbled from his pull, crashing directly into his firm chest. The faint smell of tobacco mixed with the crisp, cold scent unique to him instantly enveloped her. She struggled but couldn't break free. Let me go, she warned him in a low voice. Ethan remained entirely unmoved. His eyes stared fixedly at Lucas, carrying undisguised hostility. Lucas's expression changed, but he maintained his gentlemanly composure. Sir, please show her some respect. She is my woman, it's not your place to teach me about respect. After emphasizing every single word, Ethan directly dragged Chloe toward another corridor. What are you doing, Ethan? Are you crazy? She cried out. She was pulled and dragged by him into an empty lounge. The door was locked from the inside. The lights weren't turned on, and only the moonlight streaming in through the window made it barely possible to make out his silhouette. Panting, she shook off his hand and rubbed her aching wrist, her heart full of anger. What on earth do you want? What kind of domineering CEO act are you pulling? Did you find me annoying? And now you run over here to interfere with who I make friends with. What gives you the right? She vented everything on her mind like a machine gun. Ethan stood in front of her, his chest heaving slightly. When did I ever find you annoying? His voice was very deep. You know exactly what you think in your heart, she shot back, turning her face away and refusing to look at him. Chloe, can you just speak clearly? He suddenly reached out and grabbed her chin, forcing her to turn her head and look at him. His fingers were no longer cold, instead they carried a burning warmth. Fine, you want me to speak clearly, right? She decided to just throw caution to the wind. That day in your office, I saw your WeChat. Someone asked you if you found it annoying that I clung to you every day. You replied, it is a bit annoying, actually. Chloe stared into his eyes, unable to stop her own from stinging. Ethan, even though I like to play around, I still have my pride. If you find me annoying, then I'll just leave. I won't bother you anymore. I'll go bother someone else, okay? The room fell terrifyingly silent. Ethan froze. The hand holding her chin let go, his brows furrowing tightly. You looked at my phone. Yes, I accidentally saw it. Sorry for invading your privacy, Chloe let out a cold laugh. Ethan suddenly sighed. It was a sigh mixed with helplessness and amusement. He took out his phone, unlocked it, opened WeChat, scrolled through some chat logs and shoved the screen right in front of her face. Look closely for yourself. Chloe froze, using the moonlight to look at the screen. It was a chat history between Ethan and a childhood friend. The friend had written, that brat Liam came looking for me to drink again, saying Sarah demands a divorce every day, making a huge fuss about it. Those two torture each other every day, don't you find it annoying? Ethan's reply, it is a bit annoying actually. Right below that was another sentence she hadn't seen that day. Ethan had added, but Chloe is quite interesting. Chloe stood there stunned, her mind buzzing. It turned out the annoying he was talking about was Liam and Sarah demanding a divorce every day, and the quite interesting part was referring to her. She held his phone in a daze, momentarily at a loss for words. Ethan snatched his phone back and put it in his pocket. He lowered his head and leaned in close, his breath brushing against the tip of her nose. Seen it clearly now, Chloe, you just sentenced me to death based on that. Feeling guilty, Chloe shrank back until her back was pressed flat against the door. I just took a quick glance back then. Who told you to just happen to leave your phone on the desk? She wanted to keep acting tough, but her voice grew quieter and quieter. Ethan scoffed coldly. He planted both hands on the door behind her, completely trapping her within his arms. Even if it was a misunderstanding, you didn't even ask me a single question and just ran away. His voice clearly carried the sound of gritted teeth. You were calling me Uncle Ethan this and Uncle Ethan that so smoothly, weren't you? And then you turn around and go on a blind date with another man. Chloe, is your affection really that cheap and impatient? Chloe was choked up by his words, unable to say anything. "Wasn't I just cutting my losses in time?" she muttered under her breath. "Cutting your losses?" Ethan repeated those words, laughing out of sheer anger. "You flirted with me for 3 months, turned my life completely upside down, and then just dusted off your hands and walked away. And you call that cutting your losses?" Chloe raised her head and looked at him in astonishment. "She turned your life upside down." In Chloe's mind, Ethan had always been like a flower on an unreachable peak, cold, strictly disciplined, and completely untouchable. How could she possibly have messed up his life? Ethan closed his eyes as if he were suppressing something. When he opened them again, the emotions in the depths of his eyes were no longer hidden. They were so intense that they actually frightened her. "Why do you think I always refused you?" His voice grew noticeably hoarse. "I'm 27 and have never been in a relationship. I didn't want to play house with a little girl. I was always waiting for your fleeting interest to pass, to see just how sincere you truly were." He marked himself, the corner of his mouth pulling up into a bitter smile. "And the result, just because of a misunderstanding, you vanished without a trace for half a month. If I had arrived a little later today, would you have been holding hands with that Lucas guy?" "Ethan." Chloe was completely dumbfounded. The sheer amount of information in his words was too overwhelming, and her brain couldn't process it all at once. Did he mean that he actually liked her too, but was just afraid she was acting on a whim, which was why he played hard to get? "You." She opened her mouth, entirely at a loss for words. But Ethan didn't give her any time to think. He suddenly lowered his head and bit her lip. It was a real bite, carrying a sense of punishment. It hurt a little, but more than that, it brought a numbing sensation, like an electric shock. Chloe let out a soft cry and instinctively tried to push him away, but he took the opportunity to cup the back of her head, deepening the kiss. Unlike his usual cold demeanor, his kiss was domineering and urgent, carrying an undeniable invasiveness that allowed no refusal. She was kissed until her head spun and her legs grew weak, leaving her no choice but to grab onto his shoulders just to stay standing. She didn't know how long it had been when he finally let her go. Both of their breaths were slightly erratic. He looked at her in the darkness, his fingertips gently caressing her reddened lips. "Chloe, listen carefully." His voice was very low, carrying an unquestionable forcefulness. "Since you were the one who started this game, I will be the one who decides when it ends." Her head was still spinning, and she absent-mindedly asked, "So, I shouldn't call you Uncle Ethan anymore?" Ethan's eyes darkened, and he leaned in as if to kiss her again. "Try calling me that one more time." Chloe hastily covered her mouth, shaking her head vigorously. Only then did he stand up straight, satisfied, casually helping her fix her slightly messy hair. "Go pack your things, don't stay here tonight." Go where?" "My place," he stated as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "Didn't you say the doctor recommended you sleep in my arms? I'm giving you a chance to cure your illness tonight." Chloe's face turned completely red, silently cursing him for holding a grudge. But somehow, hearing the very words he had once callously rejected, now sounded incredibly pleasing to her ears. That night, Chloe ultimately didn't have the thick skin to go straight back to his house. She found an excuse, saying she had to head back with Sarah the next day, and stubbornly insisted on staying at the resort for the night. Ethan didn't force her. However, right before he left, right in front of Lucas, he very naturally patted her on the head. "I'll come pick you up tomorrow." Lucas's expression at that moment was truly a sight to behold. He had probably never seen an elder pat his nephew-in-law's best friend's head so affectionately before. The next day, Ethan really did drive over, waiting early in front of the resort's gates. When Sarah saw him, she was so shocked her jaw nearly dropped to the floor. You too." She pointed at Chloe, then pointed at Ethan, unable to form a complete sentence for a long time. Chloe offered a forced smile and quickly slipped into the passenger seat. Ethan, on the other hand, calmly gave Sarah a slight nod as a greeting before stepping on the gas and driving off. From that day on, Chloe and Ethan's dynamics completely flipped. Before, it was her racking her brains every day for ways to flirt with him. Now, it was him taking the initiative to go on the offensive. He started showing up at her company right on time every day to pick her up from work. Every few days, a bouquet of flowers or a hot cup of milk tea would appear on her desk. He even stopped working overtime on the weekends, taking her out for meals and movies instead. He even went with her to play her favorite escape room. Although he kept an expressionless face the whole time, scaring the actors playing ghosts so much that they didn't dare approach him, she could still feel he was trying his best to accommodate her interests. The feeling of being held in someone's heart was truly wonderful. There was even a time when Liam and Sarah argued again over some trivial matter. Sarah angrily ran to Chloe's house to complain. Liam chased after her and knocked on the door, just as Ethan arrived bringing Chloe some late-night snacks. Carrying a box of crawfish in his hand, Ethan gave Liam a cold glare. "It's the middle of the night, why aren't you sleeping and coming here making a racket?" Liam instantly acted like a mouse seeing a cat, deflating in the blink of an eye. "Uncle Ethan, I'm here to take Sarah home." Ethan handed the crawfish to Chloe, then turned to tell Liam, "Keep your wife in check, don't let her keep coming over and bothering my girlfriend." Hearing this from inside the house, Sarah was so furious she jumped up. "Liam, does your uncle even sound like a human right now?" Leaning against the doorframe, Chloe watched Liam dejectedly go inside to coax his wife, unable to hold back a laugh. Ethan turned to look at her, raising an eyebrow. "What are you laughing at?" "Laughing at your double standards." She grabbed a piece of crawfish and popped it into her mouth. "Who was it that said I was annoying before?" Ethan walked over and reached out to wipe a smudge of chili oil from the corner of her mouth. "I was just blind before." His voice was deep and carried a hint of a smile. "So what about now?" "Now." He deliberately dragged out the last syllable, leaning in close to her ear. "I'm completely obsessed." In the blink of an eye, it was the end of the year, and the company was holding its annual year-end party. As a core employee in her department, Chloe was scheduled to go on stage to receive an award. To look the part, she purposely rented a backless, wine-red evening gown and had her makeup done meticulously. Before leaving the house, she sent Ethan a selfie. "How is it? Am I the most beautiful woman at the venue tonight?" 5 minutes later, Ethan texted back, "The dress is too revealing, change into a different one." Chloe rolled her eyes at her phone. "What do you know? This is called being sexy. I'm not talking to you anymore, I'm going to be late." She stuffed her phone directly into her purse and caught a cab to the hotel. At the year-end party, she unsurprisingly became the center of attention. Quite a few male colleagues she rarely interacted with came over to offer her drinks and strike up conversations. After drinking a few glasses of champagne, Chloe felt a bit lightheaded, so she stepped out onto the balcony outside the banquet hall to get some fresh air. After standing there for a moment, the sound of footsteps came from behind. "Chloe." She turned her head. It was a director from another department in the company, surnamed Wang. He usually liked to show off in front of female colleagues and didn't have a very good reputation. "Boss Wang." She nodded politely and prepared to leave. However, Boss Wang took a step forward, blocking her path. "Where are you rushing off to? Chloe, you are truly beautiful tonight." His gaze was a bit sleazy, blatantly checking her out. Chloe felt disgusted inwardly, her expression turning cold. "Boss Wang, please have some self-respect. My boyfriend is coming to pick me up soon." "Boyfriend?" Boss Wang laughed. "I haven't heard about you having a boyfriend. You young people, don't use this kind of excuse to fool me. As long as you are willing to follow me, the team leader position next year." Before he could even finish his sentence, a slender hand with prominent knuckles suddenly reached out from the side and grabbed him right by the collar. The next second, Boss Wang's entire body was slammed hard against the adjacent wall with a dull thud. Startled, Chloe turned her head to look. She had no idea when Ethan had arrived. He was wearing a black trench coat over a crisp suit, his expression as cold as ice. "What was that you just said about wanting her to follow you?" Ethan's voice wasn't loud, but every word was steeped in a bone-chilling cold. Director Wang was slammed so hard he was left dazed. After getting a clear look at the man who had just arrived, he was instantly scared out of his wits. Ethan's company had business collaborations with their company, so Director Wang obviously recognized him. Director Ethan, it's a misunderstanding. It's all a misunderstanding," Director Wang stammered, begging for mercy. Ethan couldn't even be bothered to give him a second glance. He let go of his grip like he was tossing away trash. Get lost. Director Wang scrambled and crawled away, fleeing the balcony in a panic. Now only the two of them were left. Ethan turned around. His gaze fell on Chloe's exposed shoulders and bare back, his brows furrowing tightly. He took off his trench coat and wrapped it securely around her. The coat still carried his body heat and a faint woody scent. "Didn't I tell you not to wear this outfit?" His voice was slightly stern, but his movements were incredibly gentle. Chloe shrank into the trench coat, revealing only her face, and gave him a flattering smile. "I didn't expect to run into a creep like that. Why are you here? Didn't you say you had plans tonight?" "Cancelled," Ethan replied, looking at her with a sigh. He reached out and tucked a few stray strands of hair behind her ear, his gaze becoming deep and entirely focused on her. "Chloe." "Yeah. Marry me." Chloe was stunned, completely caught off guard. The words had been dropped so casually, just like that. "Huh." She stared at him blankly. Ethan seemed dissatisfied with her reaction. He lowered his head and gave the tip of her nose a light, punishing bite. "What do you mean, huh?" "I'm 27. I own a house and a car under my name, and I don't have any bad habits. Most importantly, I never want to see another man look at you with that kind of gaze ever again." He paused for a moment, his tone turning remarkably serious. "So will you give me a proper title?" Chloe looked into his earnest eyes, and a corner of her heart suddenly became incredibly soft. The man who had once made her feel like he was an unreachable peak, completely devoid of worldly desires, was now standing right in front of her, proposing in the most clumsy, straightforward way possible. She didn't say anything. Instead, she reached out, wrapped her arms around his neck, stood on her tiptoes, and took the initiative to kiss him. Ethan froze for a split second before immediately taking control, wrapping his arms tightly around her waist to pull her closer. The hem of the trench coat fluttered slightly in the night breeze, concealing their intertwined figures. In the distance, loud music drifted from the banquet hall, but at this moment, Chloe's world was left with only the sound of his strong, steady heartbeat. When the kiss finally ended, she leaned against his chest and mumbled softly, "Getting married is fine, but you have to promise me one condition." "What condition?" "From now on, when I send you cute, whiny texts, you're not allowed to just reply with 1 or 2 words. Ethan let out a low chuckle, his chest vibrating slightly against hers. "Deal, from now on I'll listen to whatever you say." He hugged her tightly. "Who asked me to fall so helplessly into your hands?" What did you guys think of Ethan's boss move at their end? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to drop a like and subscribe for more amazing stories. See you next time.